Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4:30 and I will call the Human Services Committee and Board to order. Let's start with the affidavit of posting. This agenda was posted in the office of the county clerk on the 17th day of June, 2021. Notice was sent to the West Bend Daily News, Express News, WIBD, WMBZ Radio, WTKM Radio, My Community Now, Hartford Times Press, Kewaskum Statesman, and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we do have a quorum, at least for the committee. Well, it's the committee, we're all here. The board, we're all here, and Gina is here. So we are missing two people, but maybe they'll come in a little bit. All right, the first item on our agenda then is the consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll second, and I do have some questions though.
Okay, so would you like one of the documents pulled out?
Can I just ask it on here or just the Human Services Director's update? There were a few things I just wanted to question.
Okay, all right, so we'll pull that out. I'm not sure if we proceed approving the other two items. All right. Then that motion, I would assume will just be to approve the minutes of May 26th at this point. Are you all right with those changes? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Okay. Go ahead, Lois.
Okay. So Julie, I saw that under the youth team, you have one staff member short and you have 60 kids on a wait list.
Mhm.
Would that one staff member be able to pick up all of those 60 or are you just that far behind now? Or what does a one staffer usually handle?
Yeah. So generally, a staff person can handle between 35 and 45 cases. And so we had actually two vacancies. One was a loss of a position and then like somebody resigned. And then the second one was the position that was just approved several months ago when we needed to add a position because of the wait list.
Mhm.
And so we're confident that with the addition, we just hired one position's in the process of being hired. So with those two new staff people, we'll be able to eliminate that wait list. The state did initially want us to have the wait list eliminated by, I think originally it was April 30th, but they are in partnership with us and on board with our plan that we submitted for eliminating that wait list over the next several months. So we're still in compliance with them
Okay.
in that program.
Okay, and then I had something about Avatar, but that's coming up later on, so I
Yep.
can throw that in there. And then I saw under the Family First, the federal dollars are now awarded based on keeping kids in the home. Can you maybe explain a little bit more what's changed in the way that you get your revenues now?
Sure. And I'll maybe ask Coral to step up and talk to this a little bit more in depth, depending on your questions specifically. But the Family First legislation is federal legislation. And so essentially, they're really wanting us to work on keeping kids and families out of the deep end of the pool, right? And out of home care and working on more prevention and intervention services. And the federal government will tie the money that they give to states for TANF, which is temporary aid to needy families, to those services and keeping kids from being placed in out-of-home care. But that is all in process. So the Department of Children and Families is working with counties on what that actually looks like, what services are deemed to be prevention services and also evidence-based. Part of the state's ability to be compliant with Family First is connected to their ask from the state budget. And so obviously we're waiting for the state budget biennial to be approved. And based on whatever funding that they allocate towards that, then Department of Children and Families will pass on dollars and requirements to counties to become compliant with Family First. So we put that in the director's report because we think it's important for you to start hearing those words, that concept, because as we are going to be expected to change the way in which we provide services, we'll have to come before this board and provide that information and ask for some, advice and input and that type of thing. So it's not something that's actively happening in the way that we provide service or the way that we get funding today, but it is going to change because it's a federal requirement that states become compliant.
Is there a deadline on that? The compliant deadline?
Cora, I believe it's like a rolling.
It's supposed to be October 1st, but I mean, it's not gonna be like flipping a switch, right? But that's, what? Sorry. But the federal deadline, because we're already 2 years that have been going on, we've been doing a planning process. October 1st of this year is supposed to be when this is gonna be changing. But
Okay.
I think we'll see end of this year into next year, different things like.
So
Julie
you'll
said.
update us on how that's
Yeah,
working?
absolutely.
Okay.
'Cause we'll be having regular conversations about how we're going to be structuring services and what that is going to look like. And especially as another agenda item later on out-of-home care budget, we'll have implications for that as well.
And then I had one more question about out-of-state placement. Is it unusual to place youth out of state?
It is and it isn't. And if it's okay with you, we actually have a whole agenda item on that. If we could talk about that
Maybe I
then.
got ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I just want to add to your question, Supervisor Gundrum, that one of the tricky things that the state and counties are trying to sort of grapple is right now you have a lot of families and kids sort of in the deep end of service provision and cost for service provision. And the concept of Family First is to take those resources and support families up front in more prevention-based services. But until you start providing those services up front and you prevent kids from going into out-of-home care and you keep families together, you still have kids that you're paying for here. So there's going to be that challenging time where we're still having a lot of cost here, but we'll have to start putting costs here to prevent these costs. And that's sort of the big question that everybody's trying to figure out across the country with this legislation. So more to come.
I would think, how do you know when you've been successful? What might be hard to determine, because if you don't have any placements or any issues, I guess you say it was successful, but how will you really
Yeah.
know, right?
Right. And until you start providing those prevention services to keep kids from out of home care, you're not going to see the change here till you do the first part.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a shift in thinking about how child welfare services are provided. And it's a bigger and a longer road than just, creating legislation.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I get it.
yeah.
Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, just to play off Supervisor Gundrum's comments, are some other things that you measure maybe for success if you don't technically have these issues with keeping children in their homes, is how they maybe do in society, how they do in school, or, like graduate high school or stay, don't end up with any like misdemeanors, a law
Mhm.
record, or go on to, like a college or a job after they graduate high school. Are there different data points that you measure that way to measure success or?
Not specifically for the Children and Families Division, because their services are statutorily required around child welfare and youth justice. However, when you talk about a health of a community and how well a community is doing, those are all data points to look at. And obviously, all of those positive trends in those areas, push you towards having healthier families
Mhm.
and healthier kids. And so they're not something that we measure for our own success, but they are a measurement of success for Washington County in general.
Okay, so we don't look at, maybe compare that population of children maybe in this program to the population of children in the county who aren't in this program and see
Mhm.
how they do, or?
Well, the way the child welfare works right now is it's not like a service provision to see, well, if we provide this service, do kids get better? Do they not get better? Because it's solely based on child welfare referrals and calls and our assessment of safety, and then the work that we need to do to keep kids safe and try to reunify them with their parents when at all possible. And so it's not in the typical way that you think, oh, if you enroll in Head Start, right? You enroll in Head Start, that's a program, that's a service you're getting. And then do kids in that program do better than kids outside of that program? Child welfare is a little bit different, but the concept of Family First is that you provide more of those types of evidence-based programming where you would see kids and families doing better who participated than just your traditional way in which child welfare services are provided.
All right, thank you.
Questions? All right, then I would entertain a motion to accept those two reports, both the Samaritan Director's update and the Human Service Director's. Okay, so then why are those items? Oh, we don't. Okay, all right. Well, then we move on to item 5 on no, we don't need a motion. Item 5 is our discussion items. So we're at the Human Services Board discussion items, which we have 5 bullet points for. So Gina, now you get to be involved. And we'll start with the introduction of our newly appointed Human Service Board members. Unfortunately, we only have one here at this time, so who's going to do that?
I'll
Julie?
do that, yep.
Okay.
So I want to do two things for the introduction. Obviously, we'll introduce Gina Labs, and then I do want to, just for the benefit of the board and then those who are also on the committee, just do a little overview of the difference between Human Services Board and Human Services Committee. But in your packet is a information about our 2 new Human Services Board members. Gina Labs is with us today, and she was sworn in, if that's the right term, a few moments ago. So she is officially a member of the Human Services Board. So there's a little bit of information in your packet about that. But Gina, if you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself and just say hi.
Hi, I'm Gina.
Yep. So, so Gina is a resident of Washington County, and she has a young daughter, and has lived here for quite some time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've lived in Washington County all my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So quite some time.
Yep.
And so, so we're very excited to have Gina be part of our Human Services Board, and hopefully someday we can have everybody in attendance, and that would be fantastic. But I just want to give, so for those of you who do and don't know, we have by state statute, which is state statute 46.23, for those who are taking notes, it is a requirement for a human services organization to have a human services board. And that board has a couple of responsibilities which are different than the Human Services Committee. So the board for Washington County convenes whenever the director, myself, needs either some input, advice, recommendation, or any budgetary changes or requirements. The Human Services Board is essentially a policy advisory to the Human Services Director and assists in preparing the budget, discussing program options and service delivery. In contrast, the Human Service Committee, which is comprised solely of county board supervisors, is a liaison to the county board and takes up items that are legislative in nature, as well as rulemaking. The Human Service Committee also oversees all of the Health and Human Services programs and departments, which include the Health Department, the ADRC, the Samaritan Nursing Campus, and Human Services, and the Veterans Office. And so Human Service Board is specifically to Human Services. For the benefit of this board, in the state statute, it discusses what the powers and duties of a county human services board is. And that is to recommend program priorities and policies, identify unmet service need, and prepare short-term and long-term plans and budgets for meeting such priorities and needs. It is to prepare, with the assistance of the County Human Services Director, a budget for the submission to the county executive and a final budget for submission to the Department of Health Services. I'm not going to read in accordance to, and also to advise the County Human Services Director regarding purchasing and providing services and the selection of purchase of service vendors, and to make recommendations to the county executive regarding modification in such purchases, providing, and selection. And so I consulted with the county attorney prior to this meeting to make sure that I was saying this all correctly. And so just not to be confused in that it is to provide advice and recommendations. And so, you know, obviously I don't think, and neither does the state, believe that a human services director should operate solely unto themselves. And so it's important to have this board to help to advocate for the needs of the community and provide those recommendations and advice and oversee the development of our budget. So that is the purpose of this board. Are there any questions in regards to that?
You know what you're getting yourself into and you're okay with staying on, right?
I'm beginning to understand.
Great.
Just for the benefit, I know it's just Gina today who's the not a county board supervisor, but when this board, when Chris ends this meeting, the county board supervisors who are part of the committee remain, but the rest of the board members are welcome to stay on and listen, but then we'll go into the galley part of this room and can listen in, but don't weigh in on any of the items that are taken up by the committee.
Okay, thanks, Julie. The next item is an update of electronic health records.
So as I'm trying to think, Chris, you might have been the only one here. Back in 2019, we came before this committee and then the county board itself to request $1.2 million to implement a new electronic health record. That request was for 5 years of funding of the initial implementation of the record and then 5 years of the yearly subscription and cost of that electronic health record. One of the reasons for a new system was the old system. Not only could you not get data out of it, we also did a full analysis and knew that we were leaving money on the table and we were not recouping all the money that we could because of the failures of the system. So when we proposed the general fund transfer for this system, we knew that within 5 years we would be increasing our revenue and being able to pay for the yearly subscription on our own and through our budget. So I just wanted to give you an update to let you know that that system has been fully implemented. We went live in December of 2020. It was a labor of love. to implement that system. It was probably one of the only positives of the pandemic, is because we had to do all these calls with the vendor who helped us implement it. It was 3 or 4 different calls every single week, and then a lot of work in between to create the system that we needed. And so because of the pandemic, people had a little bit more time to do that. So I guess that's one plus. But we did go live with the system. There are a few pieces of the system that we're still developing. One is the connection to our general ledger. And the reason that was, I wouldn't say delayed, but we waited, was because we were creating a new system in finance called Munis. And that went live about the same time as our new electronic health record, My Avatar. And then the second piece that we're working on right now is the development of a key performance indicator dashboard. And the reason we just waited to develop that was because you can't have a dashboard until you actually have data in your system. So it just made sense to wait until then. We did in the last county board meeting in the carryover request, it was approved to continue to carry over those dollars to continue funding this project. And so so far it's been very successful. I'll be presenting some data for you, and I hope you see that report is so much more improved than the one that you've been receiving the last several years. And so I would say it's a very good success. It's still a work in progress, but it is a much more improved system than what we had before.
Does this take care of the statistical reporting that you have to do with the state too?
Yep. So we are required to provide something called PPS data to the state that measures the number of mental health and substance abuse interactions and services that we provide. And we were having a very difficult time with our past system in providing that. That does take care of that. We're still testing the first quarter of this year to make sure that everything is working properly and that the data is being reported correctly. But we have been working very closely with IT, and they're doing a fantastic job. And so that I'm confident by the second quarter that will be working seamlessly.
Okay, great. Any questions from anyone? Lois, didn't you have something about the avatar?
No,
Oh,
actually, you
okay.
answered all the questions in your, because you said you're integrating the financial system
Mhm.
later because they're going on at the same time. So
Yep.
you want to get one fully up and running and then do the other.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Great, thank you for that update. All right, then the next one is the 2021 quarterly report on out-of-home care and inpatient hospitalizations.
Do you want me to pull that up on the screen, or are you guys able to see it on your?
Well, Gina doesn't have a county computer, so I don't know if, Oh, you
see
can-
it? Do you want to? Okay.
right.
Do you want to pull it up?
What
for me?
about the
Okay.
public?
Yep.
I really like these, by the way. compared to
So
what
while
we
that's
had.
being pulled up, I will share with you this improved report is one connected to our new electronic health record. So this is one small thing that it does that's much, much improved. But then one of the requests that was in our budget in 2020 was the development of a data analysis position. And so having that person on board with their skill set who's able to help us to take our data and put it into a usable and readable format for those of us who are not data geeks, but like data. And she's been doing some phenomenal things, in very few short period of time. That's going to really help us to drill down and help us to make some more data-driven decisions in the services that we provide. So if you haven't seen this report before, or you don't recall, it's because it used to be in a really wonky Excel spreadsheet with a lot of colors. And so this is just a better, prettier version of something to look at. But for the benefit of the board, two of the biggest drivers of cost for the Human Services Department is inpatient hospitalization and out-of-home care for kids. So while we budget for those two items, it is a little bit of a projection and a little bit of a hope that you hit your target. We've always exceeded what we've budgeted. Thankfully, at least in my last 4 years, our budget has still come in under or at budget. We've never spent over the human services budget overall, but both of these line items have always been overspent. And there's a lot of work that we do to try to minimize those costs and drive those costs down, but sometimes it is out of our control because it's based on the needs of members in our community. So what you're looking at here is the Q1 of our inpatient costs. And inpatient is considered Winnebago, Mendota, or Froedtert, and Menominee Falls, and some other little hospitals like sometimes we use St. Ignatian, and sometimes we use St. Agnes. So we have a number of hospitals that we utilize. You can see in 2020, we utilize a little bit more than so far what we've used in 2021. Primarily, the hospital that we choose is based on available beds. So you can see for the 2020 budget to actual, we budgeted about $905,000 and we spent about 1.2 million, almost 1.3 million. We did increase our budget for 2021, knowing that we always overspend our budget, hoping to try to come to some equality there. And so far in Q1, we have spent almost half of what we've budgeted. What's important to know, though, about Winnebago is we do get some reimbursement, especially for Medicare patients. So if any of our clients have Medicare, Winnebago does bill Medicare and we do get that reimbursement. However, it takes anywhere from 9 months to sometimes a year and a half for us to see that reimbursement. If you go to the next slide, actually, no, there is no next slide, sorry. I do have data that shows inpatient hospitalizations in this format over the last 5 years. And we did have a couple of years, specifically in 2017 and 2018 that were better. But that's because we actually received a large amount of reimbursement from past years. So it's always a moving target. And I also wanted to share that we have one patient for sure, and we have one I think that just left, but she was there for about 4 or 5 months. We have a patient right now who's been there for 9 months. She has just become eligible for family care, which then if they can find a placement for her, then they will be taking over the cost of her care. But her needs are so complex that we cannot find a placement for her. So she has been in Winnebago for 9 months, which is not an ideal placement and not an ideal situation. She's been a client of ours for a long time, and she's been a very complex, high needs person. So we're working on that. They have weekly calls with family care in Winnebago trying to create her placement. But that is one of the reasons the cost is so high, because it's about her cost alone are about $40,000 a month.
Any questions on that part so far? No? Okay.
Okay, so the next item is our out-of-home care. So these are children who are placed in out-of-home. Out of their home and they're either in foster care or a residential placement. And again, the way that this graph is set up is showing you the first quarter, but showing you the first quarter in comparison to 2020 and 2021. So in general, we are coming in a little bit lower than we were last year for each month. However, what we're going to be discussing after this is the number of children that we've had to place in out-of-state placements in the last couple of months, which is going to be a huge cost for us. And so I'm anticipating seeing this number grow and the comparison over the next quarter to be quite different. In the third slide, what it does for you is it breaks down where these placements are, 2020 in comparison to 2021. And you can see at the top, we've separated out the costs between youth justice and then the cost for child protective services. And so youth justice institutions are generally your residential care or residential providers. And then treatment foster home is foster care. And then we have some, subsidized guardianship, which I think we've talked at this board about a couple of months ago when we passed a resolution requesting for the state to take over the care of subsidized guardianship.
Any questions on this portion? Pam?
Actually, I'm sorry, we could go back to these inpatient costs.
Sure.
Has Washington County ever explored offering these services? Would that be more cost benefit, a better return on our investment, or,
So I believe that we had a facility in Washington County in the past. I don't know what year that closed. I feel like I want to say 2012, Chris, Supervisor Dice, I don't know. So it is very expensive to run these facilities, and there's a huge amount of liability as well. The decision as a county was made many years ago to close our facility. And so at this point, it's not a conversation that we're having. It would be a significant investment and then a huge cost for us to run. We did recently start a partnership with Waukesha. They have an IMD, and previously they really never took too many out-of-county placements, but they have been open to having that conversation. So we are just about to start a contract with them. It is still pretty expensive, but it is $250 a month cheaper, as well as much closer. And so it's more helpful to be closer so that we can coordinate services and coordinate stepping them down into a lesser restrictive, more community-based environment. So we're excited about that partnership. Mhm.
Okay. Any further questions on any of the financial information that's been provided?
Supervisor Dice, I just want to add too, if you see on the out-of-home care expense, because our county board passed a resolution on subsidized guardianship, I thought it might be helpful for you to know that while it was not in the governor or the Department of Children and Families budget, the Joint Finance Committee did add it into their budget last week. So maybe it might pass in the budget overall for the state to take over subsidized guardianship, which I think is a good win for us, because that is, as you see, we spent about $155,000, and that cost has increased every single year. So we just anticipate that to be a growing cost. So we feel good about that.
Let's hope the state does that correctly. And the governor works with them. All right. Then our next item deals with the out-of-state placement for children.
So I'm going to ask Coral to come up and help me to speak to this. But as we were just discussing our out-of-home care budget, we thought it would be important to bring to this board notice that we have had to make a few placements out of state for children, which is not typical for us, and certainly a decision that we don't take lightly. But we do have a handful of children who have some very complex needs. and who've experienced some very significant trauma. And we've been servicing them for a number of years and tried various placements for them. And we had to come to this decision. So I'm going to ask Coral to just speak a little bit about these placements and the costs.
Sure. In the committee report, you'll see I tried to highlight or Julie presented information on both of the youth that are currently placed outside the home, out of state. One of them is a 9-year-old little boy, which is, of course, very heartbreaking. But he's someone we've been servicing for the last 5 years in numerous placements. He's been in treatment foster care homes with his sister, many of them really, really high needs attachment related to abuse and neglect before he came into out-of-home care. And same with the young lady who is in the placement, I should say the young man or the little boy is in placement in Illinois, and that particular placement specializes in exactly what he needs, which is sort of this attachment therapy. And the teenager also, as you can see, we've been working with her for about 5 years. What it doesn't say here, though, is we've had her this episode for 5 years. We also previously had this young lady as a child in out-of-home care from her biological parents before we transferred guardianship to an aunt and her grandma. And now she's back with us again. So as Julie alluded to, both of these 2 children and the one that is also pending an out-of-state placement have been with us a very long time. They have received all services that we have available, in-home services, community services, out-of-home services at almost every level of care, treatment, foster care, residential, or in-state residentials, I should say. Even the 16-year-old received services here at our youth treatment center in our Riverbend place, and they have just exhausted those resources and they just are still struggling. This young lady started kind of what Supervisor Conrath had said in terms of measuring success. This young lady actually, based on her sort of, let's say, history in the child welfare system, of course, is now also in our juvenile justice system. And our young lady who's pending the 3rd out-of-state placement was similar. She started in our child welfare system and has now moved into our juvenile justice system just based on emerging behaviors due to her mental health and instability over the years. So we do this with a very heavy heart. This has not been an easy decision. Social workers have again tried many avenues for these kids, and we staff them internally very regularly, but also before we even consider placing a child out of state. I mean, they have to come to me and we do an internal staffing around what has been tried. Are there any relatives? We go back kind of over the whole history and look again. Is there something we've tried in the past that we could try again that maybe will work this time because X, Y, or Z has changed? And sometimes that's the case, and we try to do that. And sometimes there just is not another option, or the child's mental health needs to sort of exceed what can be done in the community. In terms of cost, that's on the second page of the fiscal effect. So youth villages, the 16-year-old is placed in Georgia right now at youth villages. It's $6.15 a day, and just for comparison, first of all, I will say that there's very few residential facilities in Wisconsin that even take girls. There's more facilities and programs for boys than girls. So it's $6.15 a day for this young lady. And if she were to go to Milwaukee Academy, which is one of the residential facilities here in Wisconsin that we regularly use for girls, it is $442.29 a day. So that is significantly more. Along with Chaddock, where the 9-year-old is at $602.17 a day, and a facility that we regularly use for boys, Rawhide, is $472 a day. An interesting piece is we're talking about family first. Not only are we talking about the changes in the structure, what this is gonna look like in doing this prevention work on the front end. We're also having decisions about how to treat these kids with complex needs and how to get them out of the deep end of the pool, right? And one of the things that's been interesting that I've been learning as I've been in a lot of these conversations is that other states also cost share. So for instance, in Illinois, so we pay $602.17 a day. That's a blended rate because this young man receives both residential therapeutic treatment services and he also receives educational services because you have to educate a child when they're living on site, right? If we broke those out separately, and I'm sorry I did not bring that with me, but it would be a higher cost if we paid each of those services individually. But that is because the structure in Wisconsin is that the county basically pays for the treatment services, right? In other states, the school district might pay a portion and Medicaid might pay a portion. And the county pays a portion. So it's just set up differently. And I know that's one of the things we've been talking about in our sort of county consortium meetings. And as we're talking about Family First and really sort of the statewide crisis, this is a very new issue for us, placing kids out of state. We have not done this before, but I will say there are a lot of counties that have been doing it. They've been doing it for quite some time. So I would categorize this as a state crisis, a county crisis of how to get our kids back home. Not unlike the inpatient hospitalizations that we're talking about for adults. Having these kids so far away creates so many problems, getting their families to them, being able to engage in meaningful family therapy, getting them reconnected with their community, helping them step down and what that would look like. If a child was placed in Milwaukee and they were stepping down to a treatment foster home, you'd be doing regular visits and parents would be on campus and we'd be working that family component, which it's doable, but nearly impossible when a child is so far away. So there are definitely challenges and we want to work to get these kids back as soon as we can. Moving forward, we're staffing these kids on a monthly basis to see where they are in their treatment team, what they're recommending, and trying to just keep a pulse on how to get these kids home as soon as we can for not only the cost, but also the fact that it's best to have them back here in their communities.
Peter.
Interesting, huh? So I don't want to put you in a spot, but how far out of state do you go when you place children? I mean, does it depend on the case or?
Sure. So,
Can you get a little closer to the mic, please?
Oh.
Thank you.
I'm sure I can. There's two, I would say, networks of residential facilities that we have used. One is Sequel and the other one is Youth Villages. And both of those networks have facilities all across the country. So, and a lot of them have multiple different programs and sites, and a state might do something different. So the young girl who is pending placement through Youth Villages is pending placement in Tennessee because they do something different than our young lady who's in Georgia who needs more attachment and different types of therapies. So the need of where they're going to go is based on what site will offer the treatment that's most appropriate for them.
All depends on the case too. I mean,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Just thank you for not giving up on these kids.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think both the written report and Carl's comments really bring home what this department is all about. So I appreciate that. And I know my fellow supervisors do and Gina does, I'm sure. And hopefully the public out there that's listening to this can understand how hard this can be sometimes. So thank you for that. Anything else on the out-of-state home placements? Oh, okay. Then we're at this point on my agenda, it indicates that the Human Services Board is to be excused. So Gina, that was your first meeting.
Great
So
job.
you're welcome now to sit in the audience and watch the rest of the committee's meeting if you wish, or you can leave, whatever your pleasure is. So. Yes. we'll see you again next month. Okay,
Great.
sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks for stepping up.
All right, then the next item is an introduction of the New Samaritan Campus Administrator. Julie. is
That would be you, Taya. So here we have, and for the benefit of everybody else who's going to speak after, Matt tells me that this mic over here works better, but so so this is Taya Walk. Taya is our new campus administrator. As you all recall, Mary Beth retired. And Taya was at that point when Mary Beth Borak notified us of her retirement, was our assistant campus administrator. Matt and I felt very strongly that Taya has a wealth of experience. She's been both an assistant campus administrator and an administrator at a number of nursing homes in Wisconsin, and specifically has worked within county government. Even though she's had a short term here as assistant, we were very impressed with the work that she was doing with Samaritan and the process that we were going through in our conversations with Cedar, which we will talk about a little bit later. But I'm going to let Taya just say hello and maybe say a few things about herself that she might want to share.
I'm too short for this microphone. Yeah, my name is Taya. I previously taught high school English in Korea, and then I returned to the States and I got my nursing home administrator's license. I just had a big passion working with the elderly population. So
Good for you.
oh, thank you.
I'm all for the elderly.
As Julie had mentioned, I have experience then working both as an assistant administrator and administrator, specifically at county nursing homes. So in my short time here, I've been really impressed with Washington County as a whole, and the mission and values align with my own, both personally and professionally. So I'm excited to be here and for the future to kind of unfold.
Taya has a huge undertaking, as you all know, with helping us to determine the future of Samaritan, as well as just keeping operations and service and care for our residents going until we determine what our future state is. And so she's been a great addition and great to work with. So we welcome her.
Thank you, Tia. Welcome.
Thank you.
If you're as lucky as me, you'll be here for 30 years. Okay. Next item is the Washington County Veteran Services presentation. Kurt.
I'm going to take you up on this microphone because I'm too short for that one, I'm sure. Thank you.
Oh.
So I just have 40 or 50 slides to go through. Make it as fast as possible. No, I'm kidding. I'll breeze through it. And we can, if you have any questions about any of the specific benefits that I talk about, we can revisit those. I know I've given this presentation to this committee, and I think all of the members of this committee at least once, a similar presentation, but I've got some updates and some fun successes and stuff like that. So I won't give any more spoilers away. I'll just let you enjoy it. We're currently this year, we're at $53 million a year that in federal dollars that are coming back to veterans of Washington County. That's a fairly staggering number since when I started about 5 years ago, it was at 39 million. So we've had huge amount of federal dollars that are now coming back to the veterans population, more so than was before. And the likelihood that number has grown so dramatically is because of all of the retroactive benefits for the Blue Water Navy and the Vietnam veteran population, which of course is very sick and just getting sicker. Blue Water Navy is the most recent compensation benefit that has come forward, and also the additions of bladder cancer and Parkinsonism and hypothyroidism to the presumptive list, which means if you stood 1 foot on the ground in Vietnam or within the 12 miles of the coast of Vietnam, you're presumed to have been sickened by Agent Orange exposure. So that's why that number is so large compared to what it used to be. We're still at about 2,000 Washington County residents that use VA healthcare. That's a fairly large statistic for our region, which is great. We love that. And a lot of those veterans utilize VA healthcare as their primary healthcare provider, whereas some of them use them for specific purposes like medication management and audiology and things of that nature. VA home loan, $600 million underwritten. That's pretty straightforward. I think an interesting number that you probably haven't heard before is the vocational rehabilitation program. That is an additional education program that the VA puts out. And we are, Washington County residents, veterans are taking advantage of almost $3 million in that program on an annual basis, which is humongous. That is in addition to the federal GI Bill benefit that veterans get as part of their service, and also in addition to the Wisconsin GI Bill, which is a huge education benefit. So a lot of veterans in this county going to school and utilizing their federal benefits. So I'll just touch briefly on the history of veteran services. I think we've talked about this before with this committee. CVSO started in Wisconsin in Fond du Lac County and have a very long tradition in Wisconsin as being an excellent service provider for veterans. Now 32 or I think 33 states in the United States have veteran service officers at the county level or commissioners at the regional level to help veterans seek out benefits with the Federal Department of Veterans Affairs. That was all started back in around 1935 in Wisconsin. Wish it would have started here, but Fond du Lac's pretty close, so we're okay. So really the best way to look at veterans benefits is to break it down into 4 categories: education, compensation, burial, death, and healthcare. Those are really the main topic headings that all of the benefits that we work with fall under. They obviously are broken out. And there's a county or a local component to most of them, even if it's a small benefit that we help out with there. VA compensation is exactly what you think it is. It's compensation, think workplace injury. That's what it is. It's when you're working for the Department of Defense, you got injured, this is the way to sue the government for a workplace injury. That is the formal process of it. VA healthcare is exactly that. It is healthcare. It is not insurance, and it's healthcare provided to veterans that meet certain eligibility criteria. Home loan is an underwritten loan guarantee. Benefit of the home loan process is that you don't have to pay PMI insurance, which is a very large cost savings to first-time homebuyers. And if you're service-connected, disabled with the VA, even at a 10% level, you also don't have to pay the funding fee, which can result in a couple $1,000 savings for a new home buyer, which is really great. And it's also 0% down. So a lot of benefits there, especially in a tight housing market like we have now. VA grave marker assistance is exactly that. It's assistance getting grave markers. So pension is a income-based benefit similar to a Medicaid benefit based on very low income or very large medical expenses. It's complicated and detailed. Happy to talk about it at length over a cup of coffee if you'd like to learn more about it. The DIC, dependency and indemnity compensation, that is a survivor's benefit. So a military member who passed away in service or due to a service-connected illness receives that benefit, and we help them with that. And then CHAMP VA healthcare is a health insurance benefit that we work with that is for the dependents of a service-connected veteran. The veteran gets to continue using VA healthcare and not that insurance program. Wisconsin GI Bill. Wisconsin, you probably don't know this, is number 2 in the nation for veterans benefits from the state level. It is a fantastic place to live for veterans, and we tell veterans that all the time, that they should come back to Wisconsin and live and work here. The Wisconsin GI Bill and the Wisconsin property tax credit are the main reasons why. Wisconsin GI Bill is 128 credits or 8 semesters, whichever is more, and that's for every single veteran that served active duty from Wisconsin, which is huge. It's a bachelor's degree. If a veteran is rated 30% disabled or higher, then all of that veteran's dependents get that benefit as well. So their children, their spouse, stepchildren, any dependent, it's got to be human. Wisconsin property tax credit is a benefit that is given to 100% service-connected veterans. That is essentially, if you're 100% service-connected permanently, you get all of your property taxes back from the given year that you were 100% on December 31st. So There actually is a legislation going through the state right now to decrease the property tax credit limit to the 70% service-connected level, which would include a lot more veterans in it. I think it's a pretty good idea, but that's the extent of my opining at this committee. And then Wisconsin Needy Veterans Grant is a very, very narrow state grant, which is so narrow that it's almost like the state doesn't want to give it away. You have to be half the asset level of a Medicaid eligible person, which essentially means that you'd be on Medicaid and not in need of that grant. So it's silly. So the Wisconsin State Driver's License Veteran Indicator is exactly that. It's veteran on your driver's license. You got a state park pass. And then they hiatus the loan improvements, the home loan and personal loan back in 08 because of economic downturn, which they have not restarted yet, but they won't end it either. So I'm hoping they bring it back. So of course, with Washington County benefits, you've got me, and I'm a huge benefit in and of myself for Washington County. So we help veterans with everything. So, when it comes to services, we've got statutory services that we provide veterans, which is applying for all of these federal and state benefits, advocating on their behalf, fighting cases at the board level, and getting veterans to the Court of Veterans Appeals level with representation. We do all of those services, but we also refer services all over the county and local organizations as best we can. If we get a vet calling about benefits that are more related to aging and disability, we refer them to those services. If they need financial help in a short term, we'll refer them to private organizations within the community. Those are the types of things we try to do. We try to help every vet where they need it as best we can. Of course, getting them down to the VA as well. And that's part of our outreach. And then of course, homeless veterans usually find their way to our office, and we've got a very specific system for getting them housed both temporarily and then permanently if we can, depending on their status with mental health, whether they need treatment or their status with drug and alcohol addiction, things like that. So we have a formal process for that if we can help them. And then civic service clubs. The Veteran Relief Fund is a statutory program that we work with, where we have a Veteran Service Commission that oversees an aid to needy veterans account. We have not had to use that very often in the last couple of years because there is so much private money in Washington County where generous people are willing to come forward and help out veterans where they are, that we haven't needed to use tax dollars for those purposes lately, which is great. We're glad the money's there, but if we don't have to use it, we will use private programs. And then of course the Memorial Day Flag Program, which we have the endowment working well for at this point. And hopefully soon we'll have that invested to a point where we can live off the benefits of that and keep that program going into perpetuity. It's getting there. So a couple of success stories. We've got an excellent reputation, and that's a big thing I wanted to ask of this committee is if you ever hear of any issues with the Veteran Service Office, which I hope you don't, but if you do, that's something I really want to know. The veterans community within Washington County and everywhere is all word of mouth. The way I get veterans coming into my office is based on somebody having a good experience, having a good outcome, or feeling like they were heard. So that's what we want to continue perpetuating in our community, is that we're there to help. And the only way we can do that is through positive word of mouth advertising. My radio address once a month brings them in, but not in droves, unfortunately. Neither do my jokes. So 700,000 in retroactive benefits so far in 2021. Those are all retro cases that we were fighting that were based on 2005, 2010, 2012 timeframe claims that had gotten hung up because there wasn't a presumptive element to their claim at that point. So that's what we've gotten in retro benefits, not continual benefits based on claims for regular service-connected disabilities. So what I mean by that is if a veteran had died back in 2005, as we have an example of, and he had filed a claim, but it never went through because at that point the illness wasn't, there wasn't enough evidence to place the illness on the presumptive list. Now we have it placed, and we've won that award for the widow, and it's been granted. Specifically, there was one at just over 300,000, and then we've got several smaller ones at around 100K, which is not small, I accept. So we had a successful fundraising event. We raised about $5,000. Actually, it's closer to $6,000 now. We got another $1,000 gift in, which is great. That covers our expenses for the year for the flag program, which is wonderful. And Matt Furno did a wonderful job out there shooting sporting clays, and he was the big winner for the raffle tickets.
So what did you shoot, Matt?
Oh, I shot slightly better than your chairman.
That's right. I'm sorry. Don was there too. Did a great job.
bringing up the rear.
That's right. So we had a lot of fun with that event, and it went off very well. We're very happy with it. And then we've also had a lot of success this year getting vets into employment. That's not really our main focus, but we've had a lot of companies, like everywhere, looking to hire. They contact us looking to hire vets, and we're able to connect vets with those jobs, which is always a great extra bonus for us. So I think, and there's me. Always call me. Call me anytime. Happy to help. But do any of you have any questions or concerns or anything you want me to address specifically?
Well, my dad was a World War II veteran, and I went to UW Oshkosh, so I think I missed out on some of this tuition.
Well, it wasn't until 2008
Oh,
that
yeah.
they instituted the Wisconsin
It
GI
was a
Bill.
little bit before that,
Sure.
but, and 2,000 plus veterans in Washington County. I certainly don't know all of them, but the ones that I do know, and they're basically from the Vietnam War, have told me what a wonderful job your office does, and they're very happy with you. So that's always good to hear. So
Good.
thank you for a good job.
Good. Thank you.
Any questions from anyone? Pam?
Thank you, and thank you for all your work. I'm just curious, how is your relationship with the Zablocki VA? Are there any opportunities that you have identified, like gaps or any needs there?
So no, to be honest with you, not currently. The Zablocki VA, in my experience and in the experience of the vast majority of the vets that come in my office, they're thrilled with the Zablocki VA. After 2004 is really when they noticed a difference in the VA. Before that, a lot of them cite it not being a great place to go. So that has changed dramatically, and that's a very positive thing. Both Milwaukee and Madison are looked at it as great medical facilities. The issue with the VA, in my opinion, is that they get a lot of bad press from their national presence. It's a huge medical system, as you're fully aware, and there are problems here and there with any medical system. When it's the VA, it's publicized very heavily. And I feel that that's a huge disservice to veterans because it disengages them from the VA. And even though they might have a very positive experience there, they'll never go in the front door. So we try to change that stigma as much as we can. We talk up the VA. I explain that I'm more of an adversary to the VA in the claims process, but that I support the VA healthcare side. And that seems to kind of relax people a little bit. And we get a lot of people signing up to at least go and check it out. And we get good reports. Good reports.
Thank you. And then how about your relationship with the patient advocates at the VA? Do you ever need to tap into them, or is that an opportunity for a relationship to help partner?
So we direct veterans to the patient advocates, excuse me. We direct veterans to the patient advocates when they need to change doctors primarily, or when they're having an issue with a formal VA process. Oftentimes when I get a vet who is really having a problem with the VA, where they're alleging medical malpractice or something like that, that's a formal claim process. So we won't include patient advocate in that. I'll direct them either to file a tort directly with private legal counsel, or we'll file what's called an 1151 claim. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a medical malpractice claim. So it depends on what they're there for. If they're there for something that's solvable, then the patient advocate is our go-to. If they're not, then it's a formal claims process, and then it becomes more adversarial.
But you have a good open relationship with the patient advocates at the Zablocki VA?
Well, certainly, every
Okay,
time we've
very
called
good.
them, they've been helpful for what we're looking for. It's just when there's an adversarial situation,
Yeah.
it's not, that's just not their formal process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next item is an economic support presentation.
Thank you. Yep.
I'm sorry, you said use this space bar. Okay. Hello, everyone. Yes, last week was Economic Support Specialist Week. It was proclaimed by the governor. So we thought it would be a great time to present just the services that economic support administers for our county residents. These include healthcare, food share, childcare, and energy assistance. The energy assistance is also known as WEAP, which is the Wisconsin Home Energy Assistance Program. So the largest healthcare program that we administer is Badger Care. This Badger Care will encompass the children, parents, caretakers, childless adults, we call them. It's adults without the children, but then it's a lower income bracket for them. And then we also have the Wisconsin Medicaid, and this is going to have the elderly, blind, and disabled residents in this. I have a lot of people in nursing homes as well receiving that Medicaid. And the type of Medicaid plan or program you're eligible for depends on your income, assets, and the type of care you need. And all of the programs are income-based programs. So moving away from healthcare, our workers also administer the food share program. This is so that residents can meet those basic needs of just buying groceries. The benefit gets loaded onto a Quest card, and then you can swipe that Quest card similar to a debit card. Another one is the child care assistance, so Wisconsin Shares. This is a program that helps working families pay for the child care. It's a portion of their child care assistance bill. They have to either be working, attending school, possibly working with the W-2 program in order to receive that assistance. I mean, we all know that child care for an infant right now is about $250 a week. So they don't pay the full, it's a portion based on their income of what the state will pay. And then energy, and the energy program that runs October to middle of May. And this pays just a portion of your heating bill. It's not intended to pay the whole bill. It's a one-time payment. They also do have crisis that if something were to happen in summertime and your electric was going to be cut off, there's a crisis thing as well. Sometimes they are paying for a furnace replacement or a furnace, just fixing a furnace instead of replacing the whole furnace. And this is a total of our caseloads. Our caseloads normally were always around 55,000 to maybe 58,000. So it was 55,000 in April of 2020. I should go back. This is Moraine Lakes because we work as a consortium with those 4 other counties. But Washington, we're always right about 8,000 cases that we had for the county, and they went almost a 20% increase after COVID. Had a lot of people that needed many services.
And which counties are part of this Moraine Lakes?
Moraine Lakes Consortium consists of Waukesha County, Ozaukee, Fond du Lac, Walworth, and us. So then we have one call center
Mhm.
that
people from all of those counties are working in, and if a call comes in, we could be working on any of the cases from any of those counties. Any questions? Sure.
Sure. Badger Care.
Mhm.
Now that's 138% of the poverty level. And what is that income level right now to have that?
For Badger Care for adults is 100% federal poverty level for an adult.
Okay.
Mhm.
So covers pretty much how many people do we know?
I don't know the total that
Uh-huh.
we have on the children, it goes up to 300% for the children, 306% federal poverty level for a child. But for an adult or a caretaker, it's 100% federal poverty level, which comes out to $1,042 a month about.
So this is a program to fill in the gaps for the uninsured, correct?
Right. Mhm.
And does this pretty much cover the uninsured
I-
in our state?
I
for-
don't really, I mean, if you're apply and eligible,
Uh-huh.
then you would be able to get
Yeah.
the Badger Care, but I don't know how many we have out there that don't apply.
So if you had somebody who's eligible, how do they go about applying for Badger Care? Is it something you can do online?
Yep, you can apply through Access.
Mhm.
It's called wisconsinaccess.gov. You can go online, fill out all your information on that way. Or you can call our call center. We also
Okay.
do have a paper application that you can fill out.
Okay.
And then we just ask for verification of what your income is and, different verification things to
Okay.
determine what that is.
So this program is basically for people that fall through the cracks, that don't have their own health insurance, can't afford to have their own health insurance.
Right. Well, some people, if they could be offered health insurance through work, but if their employer is, household size is large enough and the income that you're bringing in isn't very much, you could
You
still
still
be
could
eligible for
qualify.
Badger Care.
Okay.
Mhm,
Okay, thank you.
mhm. You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to add too, how people get signed up for Badger Care is when they do seek medical services and say that the place where they sought the medical services notes that, they're falling through the cracks, as you would say. They actually assist the individual with setting up with that Badger Care.
We have, where, like even WIC, they can fill out an application and assist people that are pregnant, and then that'll be temporary, and then we end up covering that afterwards.
Rotate between the counties, or how is that?
Actually, a call center, we have an allotted amount of people that we want on that call center. And Washington County has, on a given day, maybe 10 people that we have to do. And it's just on their desk phone, and everybody's desk phone is programmed. Once you sign in on, you're electronically and into that application,
Okay,
then you are answering your phone through the call center.
okay.
So you could be in our lobby, picking up a phone to our call center, and you're calling somebody right down the hall. Mhm.
So that's every day?
That's every day.
Okay.
Every day we have about, throughout the counties, we have about 40 people answering calls daily.
Do they track the number of calls you
Mhm.
get?
We average about 20 to 25 calls a day.
Okay.
And our call center, we want it as a one-touch. We have a one-touch philosophy, which if somebody's calling, we're taking that case and we're get down as much as we can on that. We don't want them calling back tomorrow with another question.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. And then it's not our next item is an update on the proposed public-private partnership with Cedar Communities and Samaritan Campus. And that's going to be Matt.
Yes. All right, well, good afternoon. I'm sorry that we're meeting so soon after the county board made a motion to support this in April on the 14th, 2021. But we did receive notice from Cedar Campus and Cedar Communities that they felt at this time they would not pursue. So it was one of those situations that we had an excellent team on both campuses, both communities. We worked very diligently, and Whiffley did an outstanding job. The bill for Whiffley was 25,000, and we split it 50-50. So we ended up expending 12,500. So we both received reports, and like any type of partnership, there are give and takes. So it wasn't like it was 100% slam dunk for us. There were sacrifices, and our team did a phenomenal job. I want to thank them because of the fact that anytime you look at, do you want a new facility or do you want to share an existing facility? You know, the staff psychologically would want to have a brand new facility, yet the team under Taya, under Julie, did a super job. And they worked very, very diligently to make it happen. Shanda, the DON, worked extremely hard because nursing is the lion's share of the operation. So I'm very, very pleased with that. But as the board passed the motion, it was their preference for a public-private partnership. So we will continue to work through that. And we decided, talking to Chris Dice, that we would have a short briefing here this evening and also present to the full county board under Donald Creefall, so that in case there are any questions, any concerns, I would be able to address them. When I look at the timelines, that's today that we're presenting to the Human Services Committee. And then in July on the 14th, I'll present pretty similarly to the full county board, opening it up for questions or concerns. And then the bigger issue is that the whole part 2 on September the 22nd, I hope to come to this committee and present a plan for the future of Samaritan. If it is approved and or if there's adjustments to it, I'd like to be able to present to the full county board October the 13th, 2021. Before I go into continued project categories, I'd like to open it up. Any questions?
Pam?
So are we then exploring other potential partnerships?
At this time, there isn't any other partnership that we see available.
Okay.
So we will be looking at it on our own to develop a proposal for a new facility.
All right, but so have we reached out to any of the healthcare systems to maybe partner or,
No, we have not.
and
What made this so unique was the fact that Cedar at the time, their building was built for 400 residents plus, 400 plus, and they're running somewhere in the 70s census. They're looking at the possibility of a 50-bed skilled nursing facility. So it afforded us ample opportunity with space. We were looking at taking over their entire 3rd floor and a portion of their 1st floor.
Okay.
Do you think that they looked at their capacity, what maybe is coming down the road, that this is something that they wanted to do without the county, the Samaritan, or it was more beneficial for them to stay within their own community?
I would prefer not to guess what
Okay.
they're thinking.
Okay, you
Yeah.
didn't have any conversations with them on this?
No,
Okay.
they looked at the numbers, the economic numbers
Mhm.
from Whipley. They talked to their staff and they came to the conclusion, presented it to the board of directors, and the board of directors
Made the
made
decision.
the decision, yeah.
I know personally, I was disappointed when I heard the news that this wasn't going forward, but they had to make a decision. We have to respect that. And, you know, right now, I think we just have to move on to whatever the next step will be. So,
Yes.
Peter.
I'll go mad.
Yes.
I don't know what your plan is going to be, and we've gone over this many, many times. And, you know, I'd like to see this thing fly. But if you're looking at John Q. Public is not looking at spending $20 million. And that is a fact. So I hope we can come up with something and get it done. But our taxpayers are not looking to spend $20 million.
I know in the past, the idea of a referendum has been brought up. I would think that's a likely thing that could happen. This is a huge issue for Washington County. And I think the supervisors would appreciate feedback from the public on this. Now what that referendum would look like, what it would say, I have no idea. But certainly whatever we can get to help us make the best decision possible. And I think input from the public would be warranted. So I think that's a possibility that's on the agenda out there. So we have to keep that in mind as well. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Done.
I think right now, we're back to where we were in July, talking about, when we're talking about the future. And you'll go through the timeline shortly of what we're going to be doing. But at that point, we were discussing, do we build? Do we get out of business? Do we renovate? And I think renovation went out the window because it'd be bad money being thrown at a problem that we're not going to be able to fix with that. So at that point, we're looking at, if we're going to stay in the business, we'd be building a new facility, a downsize somewhat. But yeah, I share sentiments with Chairman Dice, that I was very disappointed. It appeared to be not a perfect match, but a pretty darn good one, and very disappointed that we couldn't come to an agreement to fill their vacancy, their vacant portion, and fulfill the needs to the citizens that we're serving. So I thought it was a extremely good option, and but as it is now, that is no longer an option. So we're going to move forward with our due diligence as we were started back in July. So thank you.
And the due diligence, if you look at the handout that I sent, these are the major categories we're working on. I'm working on them. The team is helping me and they're working on it. And those necessary components for us to be ready to present in September will be fulfilled before that time. So that the board, the committee first, and then the board will have enough information to make that determination. Do they make a decision? Do they ask for a referendum? Whatever their direction will be at that time. Any questions about when you glanced at the major areas that I'll be looking at and our team will be addressing?
I think you've covered it pretty well. I mean, when I looked at this, I couldn't think of anything you left out, Matt, so.
Okay.
It looks good. From my perspective, I don't know how the others feel. So then we just plod on with this, correct? All right.
The timetable is very tight, so we have a lot of work ahead of us.
Yes, Don.
Yeah, I think also too, so that the public is aware of it, the $12,500 that we paid to Whiffley wasn't the extent of our due diligence in pursuing this public-private partnership. We had Mr. Furno there putting in pretty much all of his time putting together how this was going to work, putting the plan together. So his time is, diverted away from other things that he could have been doing, and it was diverted almost solely into this. So that's a substantial amount of investment that the county has put in this project also. So I think we just need to make note of that it's just not a $12,500. It's staff time and not just Matt's, but other people on staff are working
A lot
too.
of
So,
staff and it's just the sheer time
Yep.
of things are breaking down at Samaritan almost weekly. And we've got to make a decision. Yes.
Yep, definitely. Thank you.
Hire Matt, but I just don't see that happening in the near future. So hang in there, buddy.
Almost there. You're almost there.
Almost there. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that topic before we go on to our last item?
Thank you.
All right. Then the next action item is use of pandemic response funds for Samaritan electronic health record. Julie?
So I'm going to present this, and if you have specific questions about the health record, Taya will help me to answer that as well. During Taya's time here as an assistant administrator and then now as the campus administrator, she was charged with looking at quality improvements and way to improve service delivery at Samaritan. And one of the things that we fall significantly short on is our electronic health record. Seems to be a theme here as I was here 2 years ago saying the same thing for human services. We have in our state audits, they've consistently told us that our current system is not very user-friendly and difficult to find information. And for the benefit of patient care and tracking and being able to meet the need, the statutory and federal needs and mandates, a new system is required for us to improve that area. Unlike human services, this system's not very expensive. And I do want to just make a note in the committee report that was prepared for you. We did get a new quote from Point Click Care because they gave us a discount for being part of Leading Age. So the implementation is actually $24,800. And then there's a small discount on the monthly subscription. So the total cost for 1 year is $86,576. We do have some pandemic response dollars left over in the amount of $168,000, and those dollars are earmarked for such a thing as improving technology and a new electronic health record. And so I know it may seem like we're in a state of flux and we don't know the future of Samaritan, but regardless of what the outcome may be, we're for sure going to be in business for a couple of more years, and resident care, both quality and safety, is so very important. And having a system that helps us to assure that is important as well. So the request today is for this committee to approve the use of $86,576 of pandemic response funds. And then for the 2023 budget, the campus administrator will put the monthly subscription into the 2023 budget.
Okay, that was going to be my biggest question was, the unknown future of Samaritan at this point, how that would impact something like this. And I guess you covered that.
May I please also just add that we do pay a monthly subscription currently for our current system, so that's not a new expense. It is more expensive. We currently pay around $3,000, so it is a more expensive monthly subscription. You're getting a better product, but so the true investment is really this 24,000 because, and then obviously having to budget several $1,000s more for a subscription. But we are confident that this system will also improve our ability to capture additional revenue because we're able to track the services and the service delivery better.
Okay, great.
Is this a typo, 9 million to $1 million per year? 1,000, I thought so, okay.
One too many zeros. Too bad it's not 900 million, right?
Yeah. And so, but 10% is significant if you think you can get 10 to 15, is it 10 to 15?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yes.
significant
Mhm.
dollars.
Yes,
And then it would pay for itself.
correct.
Okay, good. I'll make the motion to accept that.
All right, so your motion is to approve the Samaritan to use pandemic response funds to implement a new electronic health record.
Thank you for making that very clear.
Okay, good. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Very good. Our next meeting date is Wednesday, July 21st at 4:30 PM. Hopefully, we'll have a full board here at that meeting. I'll keep my fingers crossed. And that being the close of our business for today, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.